you subscribe to my main channel on YouTube, I'm sure you already know this. The other day was my birthday, March 24th, which I had a pretty good birthday. I'm not a super, party hard kind of guy, so I didn't, go around and do too much sort of crazy stuff, but I had a fun time, and I got a particularly awesome gift that I want to share with you guys today. Ever since I was a little kid, I've always loved a silverware set. My parents' silverware set that they got when they got married, I believe it was a wedding gift for them. It's the only silverware that I can ever really use, and I want to talk about the genius of its design because for my birthday, I got 2 sets of the Gorham stainless steel melon bud silverware. This is genius. Whoever it was that made, I guess, Gorham, absolute incredible genius design and the greatest silverware set that I've ever used, and today I want to take some time to talk about that. So let's go ahead and start this off by showing you guys what Gorham Melon Bud silverware looks like. In a typical set, this will run you about $40 at Target, I think. I think there's some cheaper options out there for you to get. You get 2 spoons, 2 forks, and a knife that is just like a normal butter knife, and then the spoons, 1 spoon and 1 fork is a little bit smaller than the other one. But this is what the Gorham Melon Bud silverware design looks like. It has a melon bud. It's very, I prefer the smooth one rather than the frosted silverware. I don't know who uses that, but it's incredibly smooth. And the design of it really, I'm not trying to exaggerate this. The design is actually genius. Here's hopefully a pretty good shot so you guys can get a good understanding of what it looks like. The fork is a little bit thicker than the spoons, and or the knife is a little bit thicker than the spoons and the forks. They have a little more of a flat edge to them that you can see, a little more like a regular spoon, but they still have this gorgeous little design, and it's just as smooth and perfect as ever. But I want to go ahead and talk to you guys what makes this silverware set so perfect. There's a number of things that make this genius, but I'll start off with the more simple ones and then go on forward to the more intense things about this silverware. So for starters, this silverware is weighted perfectly. If you find the point of balance, it's typically somewhere right around there. The point of balance is about halfway through the piece of silverware, meaning that there's as much weight in the handle as there is in the spoon. So for instance, if you're using something like this is another fork that has a much poorer weight structure. You can see the weight here on this fork. It's about halfway through the handle here, and that means that when you're using this fork, you can feel how heavy the handle is, and the actual fork part of it that you're putting into your food is a lot lighter and a lot less satisfying to use. It feels like you're using a hammer or something, where you're grabbing the hammer at the wrong end, and it feels unnatural and kind of strange to use this fork when you're eating spaghetti or whatever with it. But when you're using a spoon or a Gorham spoon, fork, or knife, the weight and the balance in it is always so perfect that when you're gripping the spoon, it has a perfect amount of balance in, the spoon part isn't too heavy and too difficult to control with the weight, and it's not so heavy that it feels uncomfortable or unnatural. That's the first part of it that really strikes you as interesting when you pick up one of these pieces of silverware. Another thing that's really interesting is how sturdy and durable it is. It's stainless steel. I don't know too much about the different kinds of silverware and what makes up a piece of silverware, but generally speaking, you can find a lot of spoons that are much cheaper, like this one. You can see this is just a regular average spoon, and this is a spoon that if you put it in a thing of ice cream or something, it will bend. It's very easy to bend. If you're trying to scoop out a thing of ice cream of an ice cream tub or anything that's kind of difficult to get, then it's very easy to have this spoon bend. And it's a difficult, frustrating spoon to use because of it. It feels like you can only use it for soup or something that's very light and very easy to pick up with a spoon. The Gorham does not bend. It will not bend, it will not break, it will not deform in any possible way, no matter how many years of wear and tear it has. I've used some of these spoons and forks and everything my entire life, 23 years now, and it's still the same old silverware set that there's never any breakage or any sort of bending. There are some scratches on some of the spoons just because of how long I've used them, but they're incredibly sturdy and durable for $40 for a set. Maybe that's expensive, maybe not. I'm not entirely sure. But, some of these spoons, you can get a set for like $18 if you look online. So it's kind of interesting how much value you get out of these spoons. It sounds a little bit ridiculous when I'm talking about it, right? But those are just the simple things, right? Those are just the simple things. The texture is nice, the design is nice, the weight is perfect, the balance is perfect, and the amount of density in it is all makes it feel like a perfect spoon. Incredibly pretty light, I should say, actually. So it's this overall. Not only does this have poor weight, but the spoon, even the fork that I have here, the bigger fork of the two, which is a pretty big fork, probably about the size of this one. Oops, wrong way. This is about the same size as this fork, maybe even a little bit bigger, and this one still weighs less than this one does. So you still, it's a lot of power for, a pretty light fork that's very durable. It might even be more durable than this fork is. But the real genius, and the reason I want to make this video and talk about how genius this design is because the design, the melon bud design of the handle, is so beautiful in that it lets you grip a fork or a spoon or something in any way that you would use a fork, spoon, or knife, and it'll feel comfortable to you. So, for instance, this design of this fork, this is just a random fork, the design of it, you can tell it's like a triangular pyramid kind of fork. So it has this design where if you're holding it like this, a pencil hold, and you're using it to eat something like that, this would make a little more sense if this was a spoon and you're using it to have some soup or something. Then this is a pretty comfortable way to hold the fork. But if you hold it in a fist, then it suddenly becomes very difficult, or maybe not difficult, but uncomfortable because of the sharp edges. It makes it very frustrating to hold it in this sort of way where, maybe not, I'm over dramatizing this a little bit. It's not the most frustrating thing in the world, but it's way more uncomfortable. Similarly, if you're using a knife or something and you want to, I'm not entirely sure the different kinds of holds that you would use, imagine this is a knife. I don't know what you would call this, but you're using it to cut into a piece of cake or something. This is also pretty uncomfortable, considering the forefinger, your pointer finger, will go on top right on this little ridge. Again, very uncomfortable. Similarly, if you take this spoon, this is the other spoon that's just pretty simple in its design. Again, you can, a soup spoon, it doesn't feel that uncomfortable. It rests nicely on your finger. But again, hold it in this sort of fist hold, a little bit uncomfortable. Hold it in that sort of knife hold. It's almost impossible. The two sides of it jut into your fingers. Any sort of way that you hold these forks or spoons, you can find some way that it will feel uncomfortable for you. But Gorham is the complete opposite, and it is just genius. I'm not entirely sure. So the design, I'll try and get as close as I can here. Sorry for the camera shake there. The design has these little indents, these little ridges, where it has these bumps. It's curved as much as possible on the outside while still being relatively flat, as you can see. And so that means when you're holding it in your soup way, it rests nicely on your middle finger, and your thumb can rest nicely on top of it. When you're holding it in this sort of spoon way, the sides of it, or this sort of fisty way, the sides of it are rounded enough that they don't feel frustrating, or it doesn't feel like they're jabbing into your fingers. And if we get the knife here, the knife is also sort of built to be a knife, where it has this, it's sort of reverse from the spoon. You hold a knife like this, spoon like this. So the knife is turned 90 degrees. But again, you rest your finger on top of it nicely. It's incredible. It's rounded. It's smooth. It's very comfortable. And on the sides, it's very easy to grip it without it feeling uncomfortable because of the indents that it has. The indents aren't dented in enough to a point where it feels like you'll get food in it or something, or they'll be difficult to clean. They're very subtle. They're very subtle, but it's very, very comfortable to just hold it with your fingers because you can get a good grip. You can get a very good grip, and it's weighted perfectly. It's so smooth. It's so easy to hold and comfortable in whatever way you're holding it, with whatever hand or anything. It's literally the most genius design thing that I've ever seen in my entire life. Now, there is one thing that's kind of interesting that I don't know if this is because if they sell different kinds of spoons or forks, but on some of these, on this new set I got for my birthday, I'm not too sure if the camera will pick this up, but it has a little Gorham marking in there, a little bit of an indent that can feel a little bit frustrating if you're looking for it. You can feel like, oh, that feels a little unnatural in this design, where the older Gorham doesn't have that indent or any sort of marking. I don't typically like it when any sort of product brands itself too overly ridiculously. These knives also, they have a little bit of, it says Gorham and Vietnam somewhere around here. Not too sure if you'll be able to see that if the light catches it, but there is a little bit of marking here that maybe all Gorham Silverware has this, and it just gets rubbed off after the years. But that little bit of indenting on the spoon is a kind of frustrating thing, I think, because I don't like it when people are super like, oh, look how cool we are. Look, we're Gorham. Look how cool our spoons are. Let me remind you, you're using a Gorham spoon. Gorham. I know I'm using a Gorham spoon. I know how beautiful and perfect and genius these spoons are. You don't have to remind me. But other than that, this is actually a perfect piece of silverware that I cannot imagine something that you could do to change it. It has this beautiful, like, fancy end to it of the melon bud, and it's somehow so detailed and fancy, but it doesn't get in the way of if you're holding the spoon or if you're picking up a spoon out of the silverware drawer or something. It's never so pronounced that it can be difficult to feels like it's frustrating to use or something. It's not overly pronounced in that sort of way. And it's so, oh my god, this is the best birthday gift someone could ever possibly give me. I've been slowly getting my own collection so I can hopefully have a big enough collection of silverware that I will never, ever have to use anything other than Gorham Silverware for the rest of my life. And I would highly suggest, if you guys do not have a set of Gorham Melon Bud Silverware, this is not a paid promotion, by the way, I'm just doing this because I fucking love this silverware, I would highly suggest find it on eBay, find a set of it, a 3-piece set, like $18. These big 4-piece sets are about $40 at Target. Sometimes you can see them for even cheaper at some places. Gorham Melon Bud. It's beautiful. If there's one thing that you've learned from me doing YouTube videos for the past 4.5 years, Gorham Melon Bud, totally worth the cost. Anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed watching today's video. I'll see you all very soon. Until then, though, thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful day.